Hey everybody, happy Monday. How are you today? My name is Minda Harts and I'm the host of Secure the Seat Live. If you're watching us on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, we're happy that you're here. Let me know how your weekend went. Please put it in the chat. If it's your first time joining us, welcome, welcome. You're already part of the squad. If you rock with me every Monday at noon, welcome back. I am in a different location. Bright and early from sunny California. Happy to be here with you on today. A couple of housekeeping items before we move on into today's show. As you can see in your, hopefully your right-hand corner, I don't know what corner it would be for you, but you'll see that my next book, Right Within, How to Heal from Racial Trauma in the Workplace, is available for pre-order. You can purchase that book wherever you like to buy your books. In a couple weeks, I'll be recording the audio book for it. So if you don't hear my voice enough on Mondays or through the week, then we will make sure that you get that as well. But this book is really, really special to me. The memo was, and this is a big sister to that. So we're going to keep vibrating higher and keep holding companies and organizations accountable, but most importantly, making sure that we center ourselves in our well-being. If you've been watching the news over the last week or two, even three, if you think about it, Black women have definitely been under attack in the workplace in regards to our wellness and mental health. Some people don't like the disruption that we're saying no to things and that we're centering ourselves, but they better get used to it because Black women resting, that is a vibe, okay? And centering ourselves, that is a vibe. And so today we're going to be talking about Black Women's Equal Pay Day, which is tomorrow. It's not a celebratory day. It's more of an educational day to remind us that we are not making what our counterparts make or even what other women are making in the workplace. And so a Black woman would have to work 19 months to get the same pay as a white man that worked 12 months. So you do the math, okay? It's not okay. And there's a lot that companies can do, but there's also things that we can do if we aren't advocating for ourselves or we're not in a space that's valuing the work that we're bringing today. So if you have any questions during our time together, make sure you pop it in the chat. Also, this is an opportunity for you all to network too. I know we're not in certain spaces like we would maybe normally be throughout the year, connecting with people. So I hope that you all are networking and hyping each other up in the chat as well and sharing today's episode when you get a chance. The other thing that I wanted to share with you, if you know anyone who identifies as a woman of color who is interested in a software engineering role or a UX design role, please let them know that we have some opportunities so they can send their resumes to mike@mindaharts.com. My colleague Mike will take care of that. He runs our Women of Color Equity Initiative and make sure that we're doing our part to make sure that we have Black and brown women, women of color around every table at every level of leadership. Again, if you know anyone who has UX design or software engineering experience, we have a client that wants to talk with you. The other thing too, if you are in Canada, there's opportunities for you as well. So don't think that this is just in the United States. So if you have any, I know some of our Canadian friends watch us. Shout out to Annette. I know for, but if you know anyone, there's opportunities there as well. So now we're jumping into it. Our show today, we're talking about Black Women's Equal Pay Day because it is tomorrow, August 3rd. If you're watching this with us live, tomorrow, I'm sure there'll be a lot of content being pushed out, but I just wanted us to have a candid conversation about what that really means. And so today I'm going to invite my partner in crime behind the scenes, Mike. We're going to talk a little bit about it. He has some questions for me as it relates to Black Women's Equal Pay Day. If you have thoughts about it, make sure that you pop it into the chat. And I see our male allies out there as well. Shout outs to Kevin and others, Stephen Hart, who my brother from another mother, typically join us throughout the week. So just want to shout all those folks out too. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Mike to the stage. Hey, Mike, how's it going this morning?
Hey, how you doing, Minda? Feeling good.
Good. So maybe you could tell everybody a little bit about yourself for those who may not know you.
For sure, yes. So it's a family business here, as many of you all know. I'm the managing director for the Memo LLC, and I handle the Women of Color Equity Initiative, which helps women in the workplace get a direct seat. Minda has talked for years about women getting their seat at the table, and this is our direct initiative. Minda is not just about that talk. She's about that action, boss. She's about that action. So we're excited about what we're doing at the Memo. So that's just a little bit about myself. So
awesome. Well, thank you, Mike. Happy that you're here. So listen, if you have questions, we'll have time to take hopefully a few. So pop them in. If you have any experiences, say amen, whatever the case may be. We want you to make sure that you're part of today's show as well. So Mike, let's jump into it. What do you have what are we going to talk about?
for sure, yes, we're excited about Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Minda, you've been an advocate for getting women of color a seat at the table. So this is, as you mentioned, it's not a celebratory holiday. It's more of an educational holiday. What does Black Women's Equal Pay Day mean to you?
Yeah, I think we have to level set, right? Because there hasn't always been this day, right? And it's not like a holiday where we celebrate that Black women are making 63 cents on the dollar, because that is not okay in any world. And so just for clarity, what Asian women tend on average make around 80 cents, white women around 79 cents. Oh, I'm sorry, white women 79 to 80 cents, Asian women about 90 cents, and then women of color anywhere from 48 cents to 63 cents on a dollar. And that's everybody doing the same job, right? So when we talk about psychological safety, that is our pay is also part of our psychological safety in the workplace, okay? And so you can't do the best work of your career knowing that you may be microaggressed, macroaggressed. You're also not being paid in commiserate with your colleagues. And so if we want to talk about psychological safety, for me, Michael, I want to start to talk about pay, because it's a form of wage theft, right? When Black women are not being paid like their counterparts, it's almost as if you're sitting working, when we were working inside of physical buildings, many of us, you're sitting and the person sitting next to you is doing the exact same job, but they're making $2 more than you, or they're making $15,000 more than you. That significantly hurts the bottom line and the wealth gap for Black women. And 80% of Black women are the breadwinners in their home. And it may be a little bit more after the pandemic. And so when we don't make what we should be making, that also hurts our bottom line, but then it also hurts the way we can contribute to the economy. And so it's very important that we talk about these things, because, not too long ago in the late 60s, probably almost 90% of Black women were in domestic roles, right? So when we talk about industry segregation, a lot of that is tied to the wage gap. We didn't have the opportunities to build wealth like our counterparts. They had it's almost like it's in the Olympics. So it was almost like running a 100-meter dash, and they were already closer to the finish line. And then we're just getting out of the starting blocks. So we did not create this wage gap. So it's really important that companies, if they say they want equity in the workplace, then they are transparent about those things. And so I think it's important for us all to talk about these days, because some of us may not know we're not getting paid fairly, right? And you work too hard not to get compensated for your hard work.
Awesome points, Minda. Thank you for sharing that with us. And one thing I'll add is, I think we think if, as people of color in general, we think if we're doing extra things or showing up early to meetings, we think we're really doing something, because we've been taught to do these types of busy work and not get compensated for it. And at the end of the day, we have this hope that we're going to get promoted, and we continue to get passed over. So the points you're making are very good. I see the chat. It's rocking. Thank you guys for joining us today. Another question we have for you, Minda, is what can companies, you were talking about the wage gap. What do you think companies can do to close this wage gap and be more proactive about this?
Yeah, absolutely. I bet if we took a survey, Michael, of the whole of everybody watching or who will watch the replay, who wants to be underpaid, right? Show me somebody who wants to work tired, effortlessly, tired, go to bed late, checking your email first thing in the morning, like you said, being the first person on Zoom, last person off Zoom, whatever the case. Nobody wants to be underpaid. They want to be valued, right? You want to know that your worth is tied to something, right? And many of us, I mean, Black women in particular, we are one of the most educated groups in the United States, education wise. And it doesn't make sense that we would not be compensated for our hard work, right? And for our educational prowess. And so it's very important. But what can companies do? Yes, women, Black women, we can ask for more, but if our companies aren't giving us more, then we also have to make sure that they are doing what they need to do. So number one, companies, transparency. I feel like oftentimes there's a lot of companies who are not transparent about pay. Mike mentioned that we work on the Women of Color Equity Initiative, which we'll drop in the chat for those who are not signed up for that. And we'll work with some of our clients or potential clients, and they'll send a job description over, and it won't even have the salary on it. And so we have to have those conversations and say, we need to know what the salary is because we need pay transparency. We need Black women, we need brown women to know what the range is. Like, that's table stakes, right? And when we have those equitable conversations, the light bulbs go off for them too. Like, yes, you're absolutely right. We should be transparent about this, or when you talk to a recruiter and they don't tell you, you're like playing some kind of like hide and go seek, like, don't tell me what it is, how much you can make. No, let's just put all those games aside. Like, let us know what's going on, right? Let us know what the pay scale is. And so that pay transparency is key, because if I am applying for a position, a remote position, let's say, and then maybe a physical position or where I have to be in the office, and I only know some of the salary range, right? I can make a better decision on what I want to do and where I want to work when I know all of my benefits, right? The tangible ones and the fringe benefits. And so companies can be transparent. Let's not play these games with people and not tell people how much they could potentially make or otherwise. The other thing, number two, is pay audits, right? Salary audits. So when is the last time your company has done pay audits, right? Where they look at across all of the divisions, the departments, age, demographics, in title, and compare competencies, right? A prime example of this was Salesforce. They did a huge audit. One of their staff members came to executive leadership and said, hey, I don't think women are there might be some discrepancy in pay between men and women in the workplace. And they at first were like, no, that's probably not true. And then they said, you know what? She said, can we do a report? Can we do a study? Can we check? And if we find that there is some discrepancy, can we work to close that gap? And they found that there were, and they're working on that, right? That is important to Salesforce. And that's where we need companies, not just to say that equity is important, show us. You know that movie, what movie was it, Michael, where it says, show me the money? Do you remember?
What's it called? Jerry Maguire, is that it?
Jerry Maguire. Right? Like, we want to know that you're about this life, right? So let us know. And if you do find that there are discrepancies in pay, it's not that we double down on that. We say, you know what, we now have this information, and now we're working to rectify that, right? That makes people feel good. If I know that I've been being underpaid, and now my company says, you know what, we're going to do right by you, we're going to give you back pay, and we're also going to make sure that this won't happen going forward. That makes you feel good about the work you do. That makes you trust, right? This is a trust thing. If we're in a relationship with our company, then that trust cannot be broken. And if listen, money, it's not everything, but it helps, right? And so we want to at least make sure that we're getting that right. And then lastly, number three, what can companies do? Hiring, right? When you think about it, 1.4% of Black women equate for the C-suite. 1.4%. Now, I also said that Black women are the most educated group in the country, Mike. So those numbers, those math, I was not good at math, but that math don't add up. Okay. And so there's more of us. So that means that companies need to have diverse hiring slates. If you have roles at every area, every level of your company, making sure that Black women are part of the hiring process, right? They are part of the interview slate, right? Diversifying. You're never going to get to parity if you have a position and you're only interviewing the same 5 people prototypes, right? So in order to help close that wage gap, Black women have to have access to those higher earning potential jobs, right? And so that also closes that gap. And so there's so much that companies can do, but it really has to be a partnership.
Absolutely. Awesome, awesome, awesome message, Minda. We really appreciate it. And we've heard you say in the past, I know it wears you out at, being a woman of color at these companies or a person of color, but document everything you do too. I know it's sad and I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to document all the extra work. Please document what you do. It may, when it comes to them cleaning house, as Minda was saying, and, making all their wrongs right, if you document everything you've done, you have a better shot at, if you show them the receipts, you have a better shot at getting made right and compensated for it. So awesome, awesome, awesome. So
all right, so I'm taking a look in the chat, Mike, and seeing if we have any questions. Thank you all for this. If you've ever had to negotiate your salary, put your ones in the chat. We want to know if you've ever had to negotiate a salary, because part of closing this gap too, it's not the end all be all, but it's what we do, right? How we're articulating our value and quantifying our worth and asking for what we want, right? If you are sitting working at a company for umpteen years and they have not given you a pay increase, or they haven't done X, Y, and Z, then there's partially you got to own some of that too, right? The outcomes. And that means, did I have the conversations that I needed to have, right? And even though we ask for more, doesn't always necessarily mean that you'll get it, but at least you did your part, right? And I see us all as little detectives, right? We have to information gather. You have to have these conversations to get the right information. Really quick story that I want to tell you all, because again, we all asking for what you want is hard at times. Some of us can do it very, very easily, and others of us would rather not have to do it. And I kind of fall in the middle of those things. I don't like to, but sometimes I know I have to. And if you've heard the story before, I apologize, but I think it's worth telling, because tomorrow is Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Is last year I was hired to do a speaking engagement. And when I said yes to the engagement, the company, they said yes to the fee, but that was before COVID happened. And so my initial talk was supposed to be in person, but then once COVID-19 happened, as you all know, as we still know, things shifted to virtual. And then they came back and said that we're not able to pay you very much, which was significantly drastic than what I had said yes to. But they had said, well, with COVID, our budgets have changed and those sorts of things. And at first, Mike, I was like, okay, that's understandable. But something did not sit right in my spirit. Okay, let me get my tambourine out. Something didn't sit right in my spirit, and I thought, I feel like I didn't feel like they were lying to me necessarily, but I just didn't feel like it was right. And there was a woman that I knew. She happened to be a white woman who had spoken there recently. And so I reached out to her. We didn't know each other all that well. I kind of shoot my shot. I know that she talks about equity and is, a woman's woman. And I thought, we had spoken together on a panel before. And I felt comfortable enough to ask her. And I said, you spoke at this company. They're offering me significantly lower. And I'm just curious, I'm not trying to get all in your business, but can you just kind of give me some insight to what they gave you? And she was so generous. And this is also a tip for allyship, because sometimes we think it's, somebody called you a bad name or microaggressed you and then stepping in. No, being an ally is also showing up when pay discrepancies or pay inequalities are happening, right? That's also being an ally. And so she told me what they paid her during quarantine. Okay, so it's not like it was before, and it was they gave her 10 times more than they were offering me. They gave her her fee and they bought her products. Right? And she told me this, and I felt sick to my stomach, right? But I had two choices. Well, a couple choices. One of the choices was to say, forget these people not doing it. You want me to come talk about women of color in the workplace, and this is the stunt you're pulling with me, because I was hurt, and but I thought about it for a little bit, and the other option I had was to have a conversation with them, the organizers, right, without bringing this woman into the conversation, because I want to continue building the relationship with her, and I want her to feel like she can trust me by giving me that important information. And so, long story short, I went back to the company and I said, I have some new information that's been presented to me that I found out that another speaker who is a white woman received her speaking fee, and I can't in good conscience say yes to moving forward with this unless you're able to pay me my fee, because if you're willing to pay me less, then that means you're going to pay the next Black woman the same, and I'm not okay with that. Now, but I would like for us to work together, so hopefully we can find a solution. And that's what happened. We found an equitable solution, right? And they apologized. They, said that they weren't trying to pull, I don't even know that, pull the wool over your head. I don't know. You know, one of those sayings. And so, but the thing is, I could have said, oh, been in my bag, been in my feelings, and not did anything, just said, I'm not doing it, or have that hard conversation, right? And sometimes we have to have those hard conversations to benefit us. And you know what? It benefited me having that hard conversation because I got what I was supposed to get in the first place. And then number two, it set a precedent for the next Black speaker or woman speaker that comes behind me that, no, this is not okay, right? And so we have to have these conversations because it doesn't just affect us, it affects generations, right? Think about legislation right now. If the Biden administration doesn't do something about equal pay for women, then that hurts this generation and several generations to come, right? And so again, if we don't ask for ourselves, we're not asking for the next generation of Black women, right? Because it's going to harm them. So let's not just think about ourselves, let's think about the collective, but we have to have those conversations. Now, had it not gone my way, no loss. They knew where I stand. And sometimes people just need to know your boundaries, right? And so how do we close it? It's the boundaries. Mike, do we have any questions that we could take?
Sure. Yes. So
I'm empowering you all to empower yourselves. We can do this.
Yes. Patrice is asking, is there any training on how to have conversation around salary negotiations, or do you have any tips on it?
Yes, this is a great question. So one of the things that I would say, if you go to myweeklymemo.com, Mike, if you could put that in the chat, we have a couple of workshops pre-recorded on salary negotiation. We have really great facilitators who can walk you through that. I believe the boot camp is maybe $15 or less, but that's one training. There are salary negotiation coaches out there, and so Google that. Put that in the Google. I don't know if she's still doing this, but Tanya Tarr, Tarr, she does some coaching. You can connect with her. She's another woman of color, and so I think it's important for us to get those skills, right? Just like we would invest in, for me, I invested in a public speaking coach. I still have one because I'm not where I want to be, but but I'm doing my thing. I'm thankful for that. But so if there's an area in your career, part of securing our seat is making sure we have a squad, right? So if you need somebody to help you, I've invested in several coaches to help me with high stakes negotiations, to help me with certain meetings, because yes, we're awesome. But sometimes we need somebody to help guide us, right? And so definitely make sure. And if you all know of any coaches, drop their names inside the chat because get that help, right? And another tip, a free tip, is role play. Role play the various scenarios that could potentially happen in your one-on-one meeting. So that's something that I do, or I write out the conversation old school in a notebook, right? Like, here's what I want to say. And then I think about what are the possible scenarios. So going back to the conversation, the difficult conversation I had to have with that company last year, I thought about what are the various scenarios that might take place in this, right? And I didn't want to be in my feelings about it because I also knew that a big portion of my income is public speaking. So I also had to be professional about how I went about this, right? I couldn't just, I said what I said and be upset like y'all are trying to stick me for my paper. I could not, internally I felt that, but I could not do that. I had to think it through, right? I had to think various scenarios and not make it about a solution. And that's what I would ask you to do too. When you're coming to your manager, you're coming to negotiating a situation, think, map it out. How does it benefit you and them, right? And that's where we ultimately want to get to. Yes, role play, it helps. I role play with others, friends, family, because when you get into a situation, and if you're like me, I do not like conflict. It's important to kind of see how it feels. You're like, oh, you know what? I don't want to use that language. Or how's my body language, right? I don't know if any of you know her work, but Linda Clemens, Clemmons, I believe. Linda, take a look at her information too, because she does a lot of body language conversations. And even if we're on Zoom or you're on Google Hangout, wherever you're at, your body language too, right? Really goes into the negotiation. So make sure that you have all of your tools in your toolkit for that. But I think we're at time for questions. Mike, what are you thinking?
No, I think all those tips are essential. We need to take all that and take it into the workplace, and I think we'll be satisfied with the results. Awesome tips, Minda. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so, Mike, I want to ask you, what about Black men? What do you want to say to those folks watching us, our allies?
I think a lot of Black men in some workplaces, not all workplaces, some of us, when we get wins in the workplace, we forget about some of our female counterparts. And we go, man, that's awesome. I got this win. The CEO's taking me out golfing and whatnot. But what about Shonda over there? What about our sister at the other desk? I think we have to be as eager. We can't just say, man, we're eating now and we're doing good now. We have to look over there and go, man, I have to speak up for my sister over there. I have to speak up for my counterpart, because if I don't, like you just said, Minda, nobody else will. It'll get passed on and on and on. It's like a group project in college. You end up being the group. At the end of the project, you end up being the group. So if you don't step up, nobody else will. So.
Yes, I love it. All great stuff. Listen, tomorrow is Black Women's Equal Pay Day. It's not celebratory, okay? This is educational because companies and organizations, they can start to partner with us to make this right. If you say you believe in equity, diversity, inclusion, belonging, then that's part of closing this wage gap for Black women and any other folks on the margins who are not receiving equitable pay or benefits as well. This is a time in our show where we move into our bonus round. And if you have been with us and you already know what's coming, but if you're new to Secure the Seat Live, then I am a lover of grits and rap lyrics. I love me some grits with no sugar. No sugar. I haven't had a lot of sleep, so I'm like no sugar, but salt. Lots and lots of salt, but as I get older, I can't have as much salt as my heart desires. So, but I love a good salt and butter. But rap lyrics go great with a good bowl of grits. Mike, curious, what is your favorite rap lyric and why?
There's a legendary rap crew called Grits, actually. in homage of you, Minda. And they're from Nashville, Tennessee, and they don't rap hardly anymore, but I would encourage you to check them out. But one of my favorite lines is from the song Ooh Ah. It says, "Times like these make me say, Lord, if you see me, please come my way." And we all have that moment in our life where like, oh man, a lot's going on in this world. We need a little hope. We need a little positivity. So that's my rap lyric for today.
Thank you. Oh, I love that. Yes, grits.
you you seen them in concert when you were a teenager. You saw them in concert.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much for that. I love that lyric, and that is very good as we go into the rest of this week. And I do see someone in the chat, Mike. If you get a chance, if you can drop in www.myweeklymemo.com. If you go to resources there, you'll see career boot camps. I'm going to give you my rap lyric today because I always ask this question to my guests, but I don't often get to say what mine is. And because tomorrow is Black Women's Equal Pay Day, I could not think of another person to quote Little Kim. Her song said, "I'm gonna throw shade if I can't get paid." Okay, so if we if we do not get our money, it's going to be a problem. Okay, so I definitely had to throw in that little for all my 90s, 2000, Junior Mafia, all of those. But I'm gonna throw shade if I can't get paid, and so. We don't want to keep having this day every year talking about why we're not getting what we need. I hope that we have a different conversation in 2022. Last question, Michael, that I ask every guest is, if you could give one piece of advice of how we make the workplace better than we found it, what would that be?
I think speaking up. I believe speaking up has been one of the things as minorities we've been looked down upon for speaking up. So if you see something wrong, if you feel a microaggression, usually it is happening. If you feel like the boss slights you in every Zoom meeting on Mondays and treats people better, like I was saying earlier, you must document it and you must have a conversation. Real quick, I was meeting one of my bosses back in the day. Every time I would knock on her door, she would turn her head and keep typing on her computer and say, "We can meet right now." And she would never give me a meeting. So I thought about it. I'm like, this isn't imaginary. This isn't in my head. She's really treating me like this. So I had to sit her down and talk to her and said, "No, not the kid, not me. I'm not the one for this." And I said it in a nice professional way, but it made strides and our relationship got better after that because she knew when I set boundaries, I meant. And one of the last things I'll say is one of the best negotiating strategies is being able to walk away and mean it. When people know you can walk away and mean it, then they'll start to treat you better. But if you continue to say, "I'll quit if you keep doing this, and I'll do this if you," nobody's going to take you serious. So once you say, "Well, and I'm giving this notice, I'm not asking you to quit your job, but I'm saying, I'm going to start to set some boundaries." I believe, the right people, if it's the right work environment, will step up and start treating you better.
Tambourine moment. Yes, yes, yes. And Black Women's Equal Pay Day is about speaking up, right? We hope that our companies will step up, but sometimes we do have to walk away. If you read the book, my first book, The Memo, What Women of Color Need to Know to Secure a Seat at the Table, I have a whole chapter called No Money, Mo Problems, or something like that. And so the whole chapter about me negotiating, I negotiate from low stakes to high stakes. And so if you haven't read the memo, get the book. I talk about salary negotiation. I talk about when I walked away for another role. And so sometimes we do have to do that. And sometimes we have to leverage other offers into our conversation. So remind yourself this week that you are the prize. You are the asset. Okay, don't let anybody, even if we're in these environments, don't second guess yourself. You are the prize. That's all we have for today for Secure the Seat. We're so glad that you came. Thank you for your contribution to today's show. We can't do Secure the Seat Live without you. Next week, we have a great guest up on Monday at noon. Make sure you share this out with others because I'm sure there's somebody who needs that extra push for today. So remember, I talked about at the top of the show, if you know anyone in the United States or Canada who's looking for UX design or software engineering, we have some opportunities for women of color if they identify that way. You can have them send their resumes this week to mike@mindaharts.com. Again, Mike, it's been great. Always nice sharing the stage with you. So I will see you all next week. Have a great rest of your week and keep securing your seat.
Peace.